Happy Wednesday, everyone. I appreciate everyone joining us. Happy Wednesday. Before we get started, I want everyone to know that I see a post that was pinned at the top of the chat there. This morning, we were woken up about a little bit before 5 with our phones blasting. There was a tornado that touched down here in Ohio, well, here in London, Ohio, and has been moving itself east. I mean, the schools were closed today. There was some serious property damage at different places. So luckily, our neighborhood and our house didn't get hit. So, and there's still storms brewing here. So I apologize if there is any streaming issues. So if there are streaming issues, please let us know in the chat comments, and that way I don't waste everyone's time. So, all right, you guys ready to get started? Here we go. And also, I should probably say we are not doing one of these on Friday because I will not be around on Friday. I got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and it's just the way it goes. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question on the board is, good morning, Jim. I know stadium stairs are dummy-proof, but do you have any fun goals or challenges when doing these, or you just shoot for total time? I don't usually shoot for total time. I usually shoot for a total number of stairs or rows. But the two things, like this year, I'm going to do 100 rows, which is equal to 4,000 steps. I'm going to do that this year. Do that, obviously it's just going to stink. And the other thing I think would be kind of cool is someone on the forum saw something online and how many steps it takes to climb Mount Everest. It's like 58,000 or something like that. So I think it would be fun to tabulate over, whether it be 6 months or a year, how many times that you climb up Mount Everest. So I think that's something you could do, and you maybe get an Excel spreadsheet and track the amount of stairs or steps that you climb. And I think I calculated, I usually, like when I'm doing the stadiums at, 4 times a week or so, I usually climb Mount Everest. It was something like 2.5 months or something. So it doesn't take like a Herculean effort. It just takes consistency. So those two things I would really recommend. And the other thing you can do too is have a X amount of stairs over Y amount of time for a challenge. And then you can do that with either just your body weight climbing. You can do it with a 20-pound vest and have a separate record for something heavier, for example, like a 45-pound vest. It doesn't have to be super long either. Like, for example, I have a test where I do 20 rows in 20 minutes with a 20-pound vest. It's the 20-20-20 challenge. So, and it's really that challenge in itself isn't terribly hard, but I know if I can complete it, I feel like I'm in fairly good shape. So those are the couple things that I think you might enjoy. I love climbing stadium steps. I do it both walking and I do it running too, except I've run a couple times up the stadium with the weight vest, but I usually, if I'm going to run, I usually take the vest off. And if I'm walking, I'll keep the vest on. All right. The Best Boy writes, hi, Jim. I hope you're having a nice Wednesday. Well, thank you, Best Boy. In your experience, how common are bicep tears from mixed grip deadlifts, excluding terrible form? Is there any reason to worry about them? Cheers from Norway. Honestly, I really wouldn't worry about it. I mean, I know it happens, but you're kind of in the wrong. If your quest is for maximal strength, things are going to happen. All right, and obviously, as you pointed out, as long as you keep your form pretty good, you can. It's not like they happen all the time. They do happen, but it's not like something that happens. Everyone gets it every year or something like that. But if you do have any issues, or you feel like you, for whatever reason, are scared of it, just use a hook grip. It's super easy to learn. After like, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 weeks, your thumbs start to go numb, or wear straps. So that's something I never even worried about or even thought about. And I don't know anyone that really did. Okay, here we go. The Mr. 369 drip writes, are your walrus workouts always full body, even when you train 4 times a week with no rest? Or do you also do upper lower walrus workouts? So my walrus workouts are always full body. And I trained, every day for, I think, 7.5 months. I didn't take a single rest day in 7.5 months. And your body adapts. It's not terribly heavy. And I also built my volume over time. So before I really started that, I did 300, 200, and 100 every single day for 7.5 months. Prior to that, it was like 3 to 4 months of less reps and just single workouts. And it's not something I would recommend for everyone. Obviously, not everyone should be doing that. I did that more of a challenge. So I don't treat the walrus workouts like a typical lifting workout, where you're squat, bench, deadlift, power clean, anything like that, press. So I would always recommend full body. You'll be fine. All right. Andres from Denmark says, greetings from Denmark. Jim, what value is there in training based on RIR, which I had to look up? That's reps in reserve, and RPE. I assume that's rate of perceived effort. So he says, what value is there in training based on RIR/RPE? Prescribed goal for a set instead of percentage-based training, just for general strength. I would not probably recommend that for, obviously, for a beginner, intermediate, and it does work for a certain group of people, especially if you have a good coach who has a lot of experience training you personally and is there and can make those decisions too. But for the most part, I don't think the majority of people even understand how hard they can push their body. For example, when kids come to London and we go on a hard set, they always stop the set thinking they've only got 1, 2, or 3 reps left, for example, when rail they probably got 10 or 12. So I don't know if there's nothing wrong with that if it fits what you want to do and you're very good at it, or if you want to do it. But I think a lot of people kind of need to be pushed a little bit before they can really truly understand what perceived effort is. That's one of the things we fight every day at London, is understanding how hard to training, because most people don't understand what a rep should look like and what effort should look like. And again, like I mentioned prior, the reps in reserve, it's hard to tell how many reps you have in reserve if you've never really pushed that hard. So, like I said, though, if you want to do it, go ahead and rip it out. You're good to go. David says, good afternoon from Malaga. That's in Spain. He writes, I hope everything is well for you and your family. It is. We've got a little scare this morning. All huddled down in the basement. And we're good to go. John DeWolf says, hey, Jim, on the forum, you suggested I use Prilipin's chart for my second lift. From what I saw, it's 10 total reps at 90%. Is that, well, at 90%, it's 10 total reps. You don't always have to do 90%. You use Prilipin's chart as a guide, and then use your experience and your readiness and preparedness for that day to determine what percentage you're going to be at. So, and remember, that's the high end. 10 reps is the high end. So if you can only get always a range on Prilipin's chart, and you have to be kind of smart with that. Again, this kind of goes back to the rate of perceived effort and RIR. You have to be knowledgeable with that stuff. But yes, at 90%, there's no more than 10 total reps to be done, and no more. I think the reps per set is no more than 1 to 2. And then he writes, is this okay to do after SVR2 as the template for my main lifts? No, you would just do that. That would be your main supplemental lifts. You wouldn't do your main lift, the SDR stuff, and then the Prilipid. That's 3 main lifts in a workout. That's not smart. So that would replace any supplemental work that you do for that day. Jeremy R says, what is your current diet like? I just try to make okay decisions. It's not, my wife is laughing. I know. I just try not to eat too many carbs, morning and night, and that doesn't always work out all the time. Or morning and the afternoon, I should say. And then at night, it's kind of a free-for-all. Any macro targets? No. I just do what most people do. You try to get some protein in at every meal. Try to have okay carb source and try not to eat too much junk. So I don't really follow that stuff. I should probably, but I don't care enough right now to do it. If I applied the same discipline as I did when I did those 7.5 months of training where I didn't miss a single day of 300, 200, 100 to my diet, I would be incredibly locked in. The problem is I didn't want to do it, and I understood it. I didn't lie to myself. And I still like to eat pizza with my kid, and I still like to do different stuff. I don't freak out about that stuff. For me, the most important thing is that I don't feel horrible, and just I can get away with a little bit more, especially when I'm training hard. And I don't know. It's never been a big part. I should say when I was in college, I always tracked my protein. But anything after that, I was okay with eating. Plus, I was, playing football and doing all kinds of crazy shit. So, all right. Spike Spiegel says, hello, Jim. I don't have a box to do box jumps and enough space to do a broad jumps. How can I include jumps in my training routine? What I would do if I were you is I would look up pogo jumps, both 2-foot and split foot. You can do kneeling jumps. That would be another thing. And then you could do side-to-side jumps over a small implement, or, it doesn't have to be terribly tall. But those 3 things I would recommend: pogo jumps, split stance pogo jumps, and kneeling jumps, and side-to-side jumps over something small. Again, it could be, I don't know, a box or something, a small box that you have. It doesn't have to be obviously very tall either. The key is boop, boop, that you're landing well, and you have tremendous, you have very little ground contact time, and you're very springy. Just do not turn that into a conditioning session. I can't tell you how important that is. So those things I would probably recommend. Ryan asks, what are your top 3 books? Also, are you planning on writing any more books? Be number 1, so it's not really the books, but the author. Number 2 would be the entire Sherlock Holmes canon. I'm a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes. And War by Sebastian Junger. Those 3 things, probably the most memorable things I've ever read. Tim says, hey, Jim, I hope you have a basement for those nasty tornadoes. Hello, Tim McCain. I hope you're doing well. Yes, we do. We're good to go. It's Ohio, so everyone's got a basement, I think. Not everyone, but it's common. It's not like Texas where you can't find a basement anywhere. Well, maybe up north. I don't know. All right. David PM says, hey, Jim, I want to take this opportunity to ask you, do you think that method 531 can be good for achieving hypertrophy? Yes, without a doubt. You just have to make sure you're eating enough and you're training hard enough and you're consistent enough. You'll be good to go. Okay, Retro Loot says, do you believe high school football players could benefit from using sandbags instead of barbells for power development like the sandbag clean and press, since most lack the technical skill? You can use the sandbags, but I would never ditch the barbell. And if you're looking for power development, you're going to I don't think the sandbag clean and press is going to really help you. I think it's a good dumb strength exercise, but I would much rather, if that's, for power development, you really need to combine strength and speed, right? That's power. So I would make sure that they have a good base of muscle mass, a good fitness base. That's probably the most important thing. and that may take a while to develop, especially for some kids who don't have the physical gifts that other kids do have. Number two, I would introduce a lot of jumping into your training. And again, it doesn't have to be plyometric in the beginning. It could be simply like box jumps or standing long jumps where you're landing strong and just doing that. And the other thing, if you have the space, and we don't have the space and we don't have the money and we don't have a lot of that stuff, but I would also introduce med ball throws. To me, that's the one thing I would probably change if we had that and climbing ropes. I wish we had climbing ropes or at least large amounts of monkey bars in our weight room or pegboards. But anyway, you can use the sandbag. There's nothing wrong with that as part of your assistance training. But that would not be the primary means of developing power. I would get them put muscle mass, get them stronger, teach them how to jump, and then combine those things. And again, you can use the sandbags, but that wouldn't be, that'd be about number 5 on my list of stuff, just the way it goes. You guys have to understand, when we talk about GPP, guys, it's not fucking dragging a sled. All right, that's not what that is. General physical preparedness for an athlete is wide ranging, and most kids lack all of it. And so it takes time to develop that fitness base. All right. And that includes muscle mass, that includes strength, that includes obviously mobility, flexibility, it includes agility work, it includes conditioning, all that stuff. Just general fitness is so important for the high school footballs, for anyone, really, any sport, not just high school. There's a lot of kids in college that lack that kind of fitness, and it's really holding them back. So super important. Jeff Mullis says, what are your thoughts on using a sauna for recovery? I have access to one and always feel great when using it regularly. Be safe with the tornadoes. Thank you, Jeff. I don't know enough about doing the sauna. The only time I've ever done a sauna was when you're in, used to ski in Colorado. They used to have those at some of the lodges and stuff, or, if you stayed at a really cool place, they had saunas there. The one thing I always say, especially with every 5 years or something, there's new stuff that comes out that's supposed to enhance recovery, and then it just kind of gets tossed away. But at the end of the day, Jeff, you're always going to have the same basic things. You got to train hard. You got to train smart. You have to sleep, and you have to eat, and you have to introduce some kind of active recovery, especially if you're older. Those things always kind of drive the progress. And if you want to pepper it with the ice baths or the sauna and stuff like that, go ahead and do it. But understand, in 20 years, no one will talk about the sauna or the ice baths, but they'll still be eating well, sleeping well, training hard, training smart, and doing some kind of mobility and some kind of active recovery. So that's what I've been doing this for so long. It's awesome to see everything kind of get cycled through, and they just packaged under a new name. So keep the base, and expand that base. I was talking like Louis always talked. All right, man, I'll tell you what, in all my years of doing training and coaching and stuff, I still haven't met anyone more passionate or knowledgeable about training than Louis Simmons was. He's unbelievable. I was telling someone the other day that Louis was the kind of guy with a memory that, he would tell you the third warm-up set of the guy who got 5th at the 1980 Olympics from Belgium or whatever. I mean, it's unbelievable, his memory and just the amount of knowledge that he had. And you can see the gears turning when you'd ask him a question. And it was always, the other thing I don't think people quite understand about Louis, but he was one of the fucking funniest dudes I've ever met, and incredibly witty. That guy would flirt with any girl, and it was just hilarious watching him because he always had a way with people no matter what, and he always welcomed them in. He may tell you you stink, but he'll do it with a smile and give you a pat on the back and show you the way. So, all right. But he was an ornery son of a bitch, too. All right. Alex writes, hi, Jim. I've used 531 for a few years with good returns. That's good. I am a police officer and currently looking at improving my running and conditioning. Is there a program you recommend? He is 34 years old. Well, in the Forever book, I mentioned a little bit about how to introduce running into your training, especially if you have not run very much, or it's been a while since you've run. What I would generally recommend is I would lift no more than 2 to 3 days a week. I would introduce the running don't just go out for a 5-mile run or something. Your running distance is going to vary from person to person, but make sure the running volume is very low, because it's not just about your lungs. It's about your ankles and your knees and your feet and your hips and your back, and all that other stuff needs to acclimate. So keep the running volume low, but try to be consistent with it. And the other thing too is, when you're training those 3 days a week, you have to understand, when you introduce a new stressor into your training. Now listen, people, if you introduce any new stressor in your training, whatever it is, there's going to be some kind of backlash on your training. Okay, especially with running, because you're using a ton of different muscles on that, and it's it's very stressful on your body. So expect there to be a drop off on your strength. All right, it's just temporary, so don't freak out. Number 2 is keep the volume low. You can raise the intensity, or keep the intensity fairly high, but keep the volume low, especially on the main lifts. I would do no more than 2 to 3 assistance lifts per day. I would also recommend you can push some of the upper body stuff with the assistants, not with the main lifts, with the assistants. And I'd also be very, I would not do any lower body leg assistance work like lunges or step ups or anything like that. I would lay off until your body adapts. Okay, that's the best. So you're not going to be doing a lot of squatting and deadlifting as your body acclimates, and that's okay, guys. Your training can change a little bit in order for if your goals change and you introduce something, your training is going to have to change a little bit, and it doesn't have to be permanent, guys. All right, you just have to let your body acclimate. People get wrapped up way too many times in trying to find like the perfect template. I'm only going to do this. It doesn't work like that. Things are going to go like this, like this, like this. And as you get older, or you get in better shape, or your goals change, things are going to change, and that's okay. You have to be willing to kind of roll with it. Okay. John DeWolf says, yes, I meant, so this is a follow-up. I meant using the SVR2 as my main work and the Prilipin's chart for the second movement, not as the third exercise. But I think, yeah, you're good to go, John. You're good to go. Oh, okay. Here's a guy who's been around. He came back from space. Space Battleship Alex. By the way, I watched a TV show. Oh, my God. What was the name of that TV show, babe? The alien one. Resident Alien. Yeah. It was on Netflix. There's 2 seasons, I believe. I think there's 2 seasons. If you guys have ever seen the movie Dodgeball, the guy that plays the pirate is the main character in the show. He is the alien who takes on a human form. It's, again, Resident Alien. Alan Tudyk, I believe, is his name, the star. The first season is unbelievable. Alan Tudyk just is an amazing actor. He's some of the funniest shit. It's not appropriate for kids at all. It's not like it's racy or anything like that, but there's enough adult humor that I probably wouldn't show my kid. The second season stinks for the first 75% of it. It focuses a lot on the other minor characters, and I don't care about any of those characters. The women, especially in that show, are horrible. I cannot stand any of them. But they do bring some people along, and you start to appreciate it a little bit. And then towards the end, the last quarter or so, they do a really good job. So
the deputy.
The girl deputy is probably the only female character that's even worth a shit. Everyone else is just annoying. And the sheriff is a little annoying sometimes, but he's also very funny. But Alan Tudyk, knockout performance. So anyway, I just thought of that because of our good friend Space Battleship Alex. Maybe you know him. I don't know. All right. Josh Lation says, I'm a surveyor and routinely walk 30 miles a week. Ooh. I'd like to focus on strength for a while. Would it be okay to drop the hard conditioning days and just rely on walking for easy conditioning? Hell yes. The only thing I would recommend, Josh, is with all that walking and your strength training, make sure you're doing some kind of recovery work, and make sure your body feels good. Because I know, I'm sure your body kind of gets, even if your body acclimates a little bit, make sure you're doing some kind of stretching or mobility work, whatever you need to feel really good. Because that the walking starts adding up, the training adds up, and I don't want you to feel like dog shit, in a year from now. So keep that up. But without a doubt, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't do any conditioning unless it was something stupid like the prowler every once in a while. Just to, I don't know, tap into the lizard part of my brain. So, but for you, you're walking all those miles a week, you're good to go. All right. The only way I would probably say no is if, you're probably in fairly good shape. Obviously, if someone was massively obese and needs to exercise, we would approach that differently. But I don't think that you fall into that that category. So for you, that's what I would recommend. Okay, Chloe. Oh boy, Tukes. I don't know. I'm probably screwing that up. So I apologize, Chloe. Says, hey Jim, once I finish the full body, 100,000% awesome. Man, people love that program as written. Can I then tinker with rep ranges for what I would feel better suit my lifts? Without a doubt. Chloe, that's awesome. That's exactly what I want people to do. And this goes for any training program that you're doing. Do it as it's written. See how you feel. Use your experience. Look at your training log. And then you start tinkering with shit and start figuring out, like, listen, if I do, I can do PR sets for this and I'm good to go. Hey, with my bench press, I got to stick with 5s Pro and I have to up the supplemental work. That's fine. Every lift's going to be a little bit different. But what you did was awesome because you did it as written, and then you can start screwing with stuff. And I really think that's a good idea. Super idea. And then, what you also do is you start playing with your training max. As an example, our training maxes on the squat at London are much lower than our bench. That's just the way it seems to work itself out. Our deadlifts are very low too. So, but everything's going to be, training maxes aren't going to be mostly, they're not going to be the same across the board, especially once you kind of get rolling and you start to see, where your body hits. As an example, my very first powerlifting meet, I used, the standard West Side 10 sets of 2 on squat. I think I did, 50, 55%, and then 60% as my 3-week wave on the box squat. And I used 700 pounds as my number. Well, at my very first meet, I squatted 825. And that just proved that I don't need to be doing that. Training for a supposed 700-pound squat got me to 825. You don't have to adjust everything after that. But the point is, once you kind of get some training underneath your belt, you realize, like, I don't need to use 50, 60, or 65%, or whatever the percentages are. I have to go higher, or I can go much lower as I had to do. But yes, you're good to go. Heisenberg. Woo, advice for back pain. Well, this is right up my alley. I don't want to bore everyone with this. So I think it was 2010, I got in a horrible motorcycle accident. I was flying down a highway, and some guy was texting and driving and smashed into the back of me at about 75 miles an hour. I got rolled and dragged for about 100 yards on a highway, and somehow I had enough wherewithal to keep my chin tucked, to keep my body strong. And I rolled once I stopped sliding and rolling, I rolled. Somehow I had enough wherewithal. I was fucked up to roll myself until I felt gravel and grass. Luckily I was sideways so I didn't just roll down the highway. Anyway, so with my back pain, I've had surgery, and I still have some issues all the time. It comes back. The most important thing you have to remember with back pain is there's going to be a million things that are going to fix it. Okay. And there's a lot of stuff in the recovery world that's going to aggravate it. And I wish I could tell you, you do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't work like that. Even, 3 years ago, if my back was feeling a little bad, I would do, 90 hip rotations, worked like a charm. I was back in business in a week. But that didn't work the second time, and it didn't work the third time, and it didn't work, so I always had to find different stuff, and it's very frustrating. My advice would be, obviously, don't do anything main lifting stuff that aggravates it, okay? So whatever that is, just cut it out. Number two is start doing a ton of research. There's a million videos online. YouTube's great for this. There's a million people giving you advice, and watch a bunch of these different things, and then try to incorporate some of these into your rehab. And I have a rehab book that I kept. This worked, this didn't work, this worked, this didn't work. And so you always have, because that may work again, and you'll eventually find something. I don't know how bad your back pain is. I don't know how to really characterize, but if you can walk in the morning, you're better off than I am, or was, I should say. So there's different varied levels of it. So, but again, you're going to have to throw a lot of shit on the wall and see what sticks. That's the best advice I can give you. And don't do anything stupid to aggravate it. And you may have to pivot, 180 degrees from what you usually do. And that's kind of what I had to do. And you just have to embrace it. Don't think you have to stay on the same path all the time. You're going to have to change. Just like I always told this to my oldest son, Mason. And when he told me when he was 8 years old, that, Dad, I'm always going to play with Legos. I'm always going to like this and that. And I'm like, and then so years later, I reminded him of that. I'm like, see how much you've changed as a person. Like, you don't really do this, you don't do that. And so that's how it's going to be years from now, is things are going to change and you have to adapt, and you're going to change as a person. So that's my advice. It's something I'm near and dear to my heart, because it's near and dear to my body, is the rehab for back stuff. So, all right. Caleb LeBlanc says, hey, Jim, I hope you're well. I haven't been able to catch the last couple of live streams. Well, Caleb, I appreciate you catching up today. And he writes that he's glad that I'm still doing these. Well, Caleb, I am super happy. I love doing this stuff. It's super fun. In fact, I'd rather, even when I did do, talks or seminars, I'd much rather just get in front of a group of people and answer questions. I think that's, to me, a seminar is much better off like that, because the people that pay to go to a seminar want their questions answered, rather than me just getting up there and telling them what I think or what I know. Instead, I'd rather answer questions that you have. That way you get the money's worth out of the seminar. So if I was ever going to do another talk, I think I'd rather do something like that, just a big open Q&A, and we could everyone just bullshit and talk. And I think it's also super important that other people at the seminar pipe in. So anyway, I appreciate Caleb. John Donovan says, will you be doing a virtual challenge 5 through unmeet again this year on the forum? Yeah, we'll probably do something. We'll probably do something. We'll always, think of something stupid to do. Caleb LeBlanc says, hey, are there any new training goals that you have been working on? Well, I'm going to do my stairs goals, the 100, and I want to do some different heavier weight vest stair stuff. I love doing that stuff. And I also have my my yearly check on my pull-up strength. I always try to do a 106-pound chin up. I have a 106-pound kettlebell. So I always make sure I can do that every year. And then I'm also going to do my challenge, the 150 squats, 100 push-ups, and 50 chin-ups. And I put on a 45-pound vest, and as long as I can do it in less than 30 minutes and feel awesome, I'll be good to go. So I'd also like, if I can maintain my health enough, my body health, be able to push the 150, 150 with a heavier vest, because I have a vest that goes to 84 pounds, and that's always been something I'd like to do. I just don't know if my body will cooperate. So again, the stairs stuff, the chin-up stuff, and the what I call like the NOV weight vest challenge that I do. All right. Zaction Figure says, hey, I'm just popping up and showing some love, Jim. Well, thank you very much. You have any damage with the tornado? Me and Smokey are in town for a podcast with Dave, and it got nasty. And yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, we're good to go. There's no damage. In fact, our London airport, though, yes, we have an airport in London, got fucking smashed, and a few houses here and there. Not, I don't think in London, but a couple houses east, I think in Hilliard, got popped a little bit. So it just stinks. I'm very, very grateful. So, all right, Caleb then asked, what music have you been listening to lately? Well, the new Iron Monkey just released a new song, but I always listen. I love listening. Iron Monkey and Neurosis. Those seems to be the the two things I've been listening to a lot. And I always have Marduk happens to be popping up a lot. There's another band a friend of mine's in. It's called Hellborn. The bassist and singer is an avid lifter, and the bassist and singer used to play drums in the Polish band Behemoth. And their latest album, which came out probably 2 or 3 years ago, man, I still love listening to that thing. I love training to that album. It's unbelievable, especially I think it's the first or second song. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's one of the best songs, just ripping, just great lyrics, great riffs. So, but yeah, Neurosis, Iron Monkey, Hellborn, and Marduk always seems to make its way for whatever reason into my when I'm training. I love listening to that stuff. Zaction says now, hey, have you ever tried alternating a heavy squat 1 week and a heavy deadlift 1 week? Yes, I trained for that for like 2 years. I had tremendous success. The one thing I think that's important to point out, though, I lifted basically twice a week. And so I had one day was either bench or the press, and one day was either squat or deadlift. But I was also pushing the prowler religiously 3 days a week. So I was also getting a ton of other leg work, even though it wasn't squatting. And I think that's important to note. I didn't just sit around and do nothing. But I felt really good doing that. But I don't, obviously doesn't work for everyone like that. I mean, especially, obviously if something works better for you, or if you're a complete beginner and stuff, it probably is not a very good idea. Or if you have, super high fitness level and, I should say a beginner with a high fitness level could obviously do more. So, but yeah, I had a great time doing that. Loved it. I loved doing that. Every workout seemed to be so important to me, and I loved each training day because they weren't terribly frequent. And boy, did I got strong doing that. So, okay. Tony Luch writes, on the forum you mentioned that you challenge your kids on bench with training max lift prior to the PR set. I was hoping to hear any additional thoughts. This is a new concept to me. All right, so all we did is, this doesn't happen all the time, but you have to understand when you're coaching, you can't just have a piece of paper with the workout written on it and just do it. So one day the kids' bar speed was really solid, really good. And so what we did was, you have to understand all of our sets are done on a timer. All the kids do the sets together. It's very structured, incredibly militant. So we did our first set, our second set, our third set. And then after the third set, we only did 1 or 2 reps on the heaviest set of like week 1, let's just say, or week 2. Then we did a single at the training max, and then we went back down and did a PR set. And all this is really doing a lot of people can get stuff out of, can get a good training stimulus from this, is you're just kind of touching something heavier and then going with something lower, and theoretically the weight will feel better. As an example, I'm sure some of you guys have had to do the 225 test in college for the bench, and before we did the 225, you do your warm-ups and maybe hit 315 or something for a single, and then back down to 225. And I never really got a ton out of that, if I'm going to be honest. But our big push, and has been the big push at London, was emphasizing bar speed and emphasizing effort and pushing, giving a ton of effort into the bar at every rep. So this is one of the ways that we do it, that I want those kids to feel something a little heavy and learn how to push as fast and as strong as possible. So Yeah, it's nothing really that new. I know it's new to you, Tony, but it's just working up to a very moderately heavy single for these kids. These are not even close to their maxes and stuff. Just kind of give them a little touch of a little heavier weight, and then we just drop back down and do some reps and be awesome. So we're having a good off season this year, really good off season. High fructose dreams. Would you still recommend doing the original 5-3-1 program as was written, constantly increasing the training max until you begin to fail to hit the prescribed reps? No. What I would recommend, do the original 5-3-1 program, and I would always recommend that you're able to get 5 reps on your 5-3-1 day. That's what I would personally recommend, and that's at least 5 reps. Now, every lift is going to be a little bit different, but that's kind of how we do it at London. We have a couple little things that we throw in there, and obviously you have to watch the set and make sure the set is awesome and stuff like that. So what I have noticed over my, God knows, 35 years of training is you get longer, better results by training lighter in the training max than if you would train heavier. And I think too many people are trying to, max out basically, and it doesn't work like that. Just because you did 100 pounds for 5 reps on this day doesn't mean you're ready to do 105 for 5 the next day. You kind of have to let that strength build up and let the muscle mass build up from the assistance. So we repeat cycles constantly at London until I like what I see. And so theoretically, you'd think, well, they're only doing X, Y, and Z weights over and over again, and they're not going to get any stronger, right? Because they didn't increase the weight on the barbell. But what happens is their reps get better, their rep PRs go up. We spend a ton of time on assistance. We spend a ton of time bringing up just general fitness. So then when we do hit something kind of heavier, always the kids that train lighter, faster and stronger and more consistently always get super strong if we want to hit a heavy single every once in a while. So as an example, one of their kids, and I guess it was Monday, we did it's hard to explain what we did, but I'll just leave it like this. He did 205. His training max was 205. And for the past year and a half, we really worked on increasing his fitness levels. They were very low. The big thing was teaching him how to push, because he'd always stop about right there, and then he'd kind of extend a little bit. So we really talked about punching through the rep. Anyway, with a training max of 205, he ended up benching, I think, 245 for 5 or 225 for 8, something stupid like that. He just got up from the bench like, holy cow. I'm like, well, that's what happens when you train correctly. And the most important thing is when you train with a fairly, what I call strong, lighter training max, is the next workout that you have, so if you're training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, the next day. All right. On funeral fog and just being voiced down like that. So Caleb LeBlanc writes, hey, I went and listened to the Neurosis song, My Heart for Deliverance, after you mentioned it a while back. Man, what a song. I love this. My favorite Neurosis song, probably one of my top songs of all time, especially if you can get a live version of it. I think Neurosis Live, I've said this before, is the greatest band I've ever seen by far. By far. We got about 7 minutes or so. All right, Big Sun says, hey, Jim, I train judo chop. All right, I train judo 2 to 3 times per week, and I lift 4 times per week. Would you recommend to lift before practice and have more rest days, or on non-practice days to spread out the training? I would recommend you train before practice. I don't know if I would lift 4 days a week. That's the magic of coaching, is I would assess you on each training day and see. And so that's me telling you that you should assess yourself. But I would probably train before practice, and I would probably cut down on the volume a little bit and make sure that you pivot on days that you don't feel good. I wouldn't just, you have to do X, Y, and Z And even if you're feeling like dog shit, I probably wouldn't do that. Training for sports is probably my biggest passion. I just love doing that stuff. And I love the challenge of not just getting a young football player ready for the season, but manipulating the variables every training day, which to me is the magic of coaching. It's easy just to write a workout down and just tell the kids to do it. The real magic of coaching is getting everyone on the same page and getting them successful and adjusting things as need be. So one thing I always think about is I see way too many coaches, especially that are kind of pumped up on the TV, and these supposed guys who are cheerleaders on the sideline and do a lot of yelling in the weight room. To me, yelling is not coaching. Coaching is coaching, and communicating is coaching. That doesn't mean you can't get on your kids a little bit. It doesn't mean you can't be vocal. But I see way too many people blasting music in the weight room and screaming and thinking that's what proper coaching. And number 3, I would obviously avoid the bottom of a squat or a sumo deadlift. So, for example, if I were you, I would probably do box squats 1 or 2 inches above parallel, because that's not the bottom of a squat. And I'd also do probably rack pulls and find maybe 2 or 3 different positions on the sumo deadlift. You can even do 1 or 2 different box heights. And this is the time now where you start finding ways around exercises that allow you to do the exercise without aggravating anything. So my advice is while you're rehabbing it, find, maybe front squats work or whatever. I don't know what it is, but I would recommend starting with a box squat that's probably, 2 inches above parallel and go from there. And if there's no pain, man, train that thing as hard as hell. And the same thing with rack pulls or block pulls or whatever you want to do. As long as the bar is elevated in the sumo or regular, any kind of deadlift, I think you'd be good to go. And I would just pound the shit out of those, man. I mean, pound it out. And the other thing is make sure you're keeping some kind of rehab journal where you're writing down all the different things that you're doing. So if you wake up on Wednesday and everything feels awesome, you go back and see, the last couple of days what you've been doing. If you wake up on a Wednesday and everything feels like shit, and maybe you introduce something new, or you notice that if you do this certain rehab exercises more than 4 or 5 days in a row, it starts aggravating it, then you have some kind of written proof of what you've done instead of just trying to remember everything. So you'll be good to go, man. And it sounds like, Palmer, it sounds like you're being proactive in this, and I think that's awesome. One of the things that I've done a good job of and a horrible job of is being proactive with some of this stuff. Like many of you, I'll just push my body until it's falling apart. And other days, other times I do a good job of when my body's telling me something, to lay off. So I've been my own worst coach and my own best coach. It just, I guess, depends on where my head is at the time. So, all right, we got about 2 more minutes. So if anyone has any more questions, please do so. I should probably turn this hat around. This is our new 531 hat here. It is a Roman numeral, black on black hat. I love this thing. I got this, I think, last week or so. And I've been wearing the shit out of it, trying to sweat in it a little bit. And love this hat. It fits very well, guys. And, all right, here we go. Let's see here. Got another question. Hey, Jim, is the original 531, do you need to reset or lower the accessories when resetting the main lifts? Or keep the progress on the accessories if possible? Keep the progress on the accessories. And what if you have lift with FCL accessory? I don't know what that means, but generally speaking, this question, you always want to keep, generally speaking, unless you're doing a shitload of supplemental work, keep those the assistance work. It doesn't have to be a lot; it just has to be awesome. And so the big thing is make sure you're increasing muscle mass, make sure you're getting a full range of motion, make sure your reps again. Make sure your reps are strong and explosive. Start tapping into some rep ranges you're not used to. So if you're always doing low reps and stuff, maybe that's what you're good at. Start trying to do some stuff in the higher rep ranges. Build some muscle. And remember that it's going to take time. Now, if you're clarify this. If you're doing boring but big, you're going to have to obviously lessen, like I just said, because you're doing a lot of supplement work. You'll probably have to cut back a little bit. But I would also recommend you don't do first set last for 5 sets of 10 all the time. Do it for 3 cycles and then switch to something else. Okay, that's the other thing I would highly recommend. You might still do 5 sets of 10, but do it with an assistance lift. For example, after you squat, you pick up the 100-pound dumbbell, and you've got to get 50 to 100 total reps in 10 minutes with that, and that will be will replace the 5 sets of 10. We do this all the time at London. So we don't do any supplemental work at London. We cut all that out, and we actually got better at doing that. I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of volume that we do outside the weight room, the running and stuff like that. But don't just do one thing all the time, especially with lifting. And make sure you keep that training max. As soon as it starts getting, something gets a little wonky, back it back down and let that stuff build up. So, but again, if you're doing, for example, your squat work and then doing boring but big with 5 sets of 10 there, I would probably severely limit some of your assistance work for your lower body. I would really recommend doing a lot of ab and low back work. That is a huge hole in most people's programs. They think doing a couple sets of crunches is good enough, or maybe doing 2 sets of 10 on the back raise, but that's not going to cut it, guys, especially if your goal is to actually move some weight and start tapping into strength levels that for you are just ungodly. So don't be one of those people, all right, that thinks squatting, you're going to train your abs with squats and deadlifts, and that's going to be enough, all right? There's going to be a point where it's not going to be enough. And unless you are genetically suited to be awesome at the lifts, you're going to hit a wall and you're never going to get over it. So, all right, here we go. It is 11:02. I trust I didn't get any comments in the chat. I trust everything went well. That means the stream, and we give a big middle finger to Mother Nature and the weather, which is awesome. I really appreciate everyone showing up. I appreciate the short notice. I will be back next week. And hope everyone has a safe weekend coming up here. And as always, if you're doing something dumb conditioning-wise, good luck to you. If you've got a challenge of any physical challenge of any type, go ahead and get it done. You know, be smart, obviously, with your training, but don't be afraid to be a little dumb and push your brain, push your body, all that good stuff. So anyway, thank you guys for showing up. I love all of you for doing that. I will see you guys next week, and have a great day.